For Daily Ask Reddit. Lawyers of Reddit, what is a detail that your client failed to bring up to you that completely lost you the case? It was a typical appointment/interview with the immigration committee in order to grant my client a residence permit. He was marrying a woman in my country with my country's nationality, and this is a legitimate reason to be granted a residence permit. So it was a typical procedure. At least that's what I thought. The committee is bored to death and we all want to be over with it. So they asked him all typical and boring questions like how did they meet, where they live, etc. They ask these things to identify white/false marriages. At some point they ask him if he was married before, and he says yes, back in my home country, and I'm still married actually, never got a divorce. WTF. I was stunned. Double marriage is forbidden in my country. And he never bothered to mention this detail to me, neither to the other lawyer, when we asked him. He later told me he said the truth because he was afraid to lie in front of a committee. A honest and stupid man. I got all my money though, yet we had to find another way to gain a residence permit. Unfair dismissal case. The client claimed to have been dismissed without reason or following procedure. After we had started the case, it comes out that not only was he given 3 written warnings, but he was also called in for a disciplinary hearing before his dismissal. Don't lie to your lawyer. Similar to a doctor, I feel like not telling your lawyer everything can just hurt you. The only reason I can see anyone having a valid reason for lying to a doctor is if they have someone in the room, the patient, who they can't tell the truth to. For example, sex. If I was at the doctor's with my family present, any one of them, and a doctor asked me, I'd say no. Not because I want to lie, but because my family are extreme Christians and sex before marriage is the worst thing to them. Thankfully I can drive, and am extremely unlikely to ever be in this situation. I did some personal injury stuff before I went into teaching. This wasn't my client, but rather the person trying to sue them for 7 figures. I imagine his lawyers wouldn't have been too pleased with the fact he failed to mention the 2 reality TV shows he'd been on since the accident. He was trying to claim 7 figures for a brain injury that supposedly ruined his life, yet half the country had watched him be perfectly fine on TV, and a quick Google brought all that up to us. Trial was supposed to last 3 days. We were done by that afternoon. A friend of mine is a lawyer, and he said that a client once turned up to court in the actual same outfit he was wearing in the burglary. When the CCTV footage come up in evidence, the client looked down to himself and was like, "Oh shit. Your Honor, I'd like to plead back." Coincidence. Client in family law matter lied to me about using meth. Then used meth with the child in the room, and the ex got footage of it on the nanny cam and then made excuses about why they couldn't do a drug test, then blamed me when they lost custody, despite the fact that they didn't show up to appointments or return my calls, so I couldn't prepare any court material. I dumped the client after that and left family law. Not a lawyer yet, but I clerked for a DA's office throughout law school. Obviously we don't have clients, but I'll never forget this kidnapping case I worked on. It involved 2 Asian male defendants who were both the same age and looked relatively similar. Witness is on the stand and is asked to identify where the defendant who pushed a newsie into his face is seated. It's clear the witness is having trouble differentiating the defendants. In a true moment of brilliance, one defendant raises his ducking hand and basically points to himself like, "Right here, bud." Hands down the dumbest shit I'd ever seen. I thought his defense attorney was going to have a brain aneurysm. Not a lawyer. My parents had a long messy divorce that took 2.5 years in court. My dad claimed that my mother was trying to take 100% of everything based on a settlement offer she sent him. He failed to mention to his lawyers that her initial offer, sent to his previous lawyers, was a 60/40 split, and she only sent that 100% one in response to an equally unreasonable offer from him. As soon as she could prove the initial offer was reasonable, the judge just basically ruled on everything according to that first offer. His lawyers were so angry because they built their entire case around the idea that she was the unreasonable one. I'm a patent attorney in the UK. Rule number 1 of patent club is that you need to keep your idea secret until you filed a patent application. The US has some allowances for the inventor publishing their own invention, but these are weird and specific to the US. It absolutely doesn't apply here in the UK, where publishing your idea before applying for a patent means no patent. I had an inventor who wanted to send me an explanation of his invention so that I could draft an application for him. Inexplicably, rather than zip up all his materials and email them over, he prepared them as a web page which he put on his personal site, then emailed me a link to that. He literally sent the materials to me by publishing them. As it happened, it was a crazy idea that we almost certainly couldn't have protected, and he saved himself the cost of my initial review by torpedoing his own application before it was filed. Clients have done some dumb things over the years, but this instance really stood out.